Your mind is creating a reality around you every single day, and most people never realize they are being controlled by their own thoughts. The human mind is one of the most powerful forces on Earth, yet most people go through life without truly understanding how much control it has over their reality. Every emotion you feel, every decision you make, every fear you carry, and every dream you chase begins inside the mind first. Before reality changes externally, it changes internally. And that is what makes the mind so dangerous and so powerful at the same time. Think about it carefully. Two people can live through the exact same situation and experience it completely differently. One person sees failure and gives up. Another sees a lesson and becomes stronger. One person sees opportunity. Another sees fear. The external world may remain the same, but the inner world changes everything. Because humans do not react to reality exactly as it is. They react to the version of reality created inside their minds. That means perception shapes experience more than most people realize. If the mind is filled with fear, the world begins to look threatening. If the mind is filled with negativity, problems appear everywhere. But when the mind is focused, calm, and disciplined, challenges begin to feel smaller. The same life can feel completely different depending on the condition of the mind experiencing it. And this happens quietly every single day. Most people wake up and immediately allow their minds to control them instead of learning how to control their minds. Thoughts begin racing automatically. Worries about the future appear. Regrets from the past return. Stress builds before the day even truly begins. Without realizing it, millions of people live as prisoners of their own thinking patterns. Being why, mind becomes a battlefield hidden inside silence. And perhaps the most dangerous part is that thoughts feel real even when they are not true. Anxiety creates imagined disasters. Overthinking turns small problems into enormous fears. Insecurity distorts self-worth. The human brain constantly creates emotional realities that affect behavior long before anything happens externally. That means many people suffer not because of reality itself, but because of the way their minds interpret reality. This is why mindset changes everything. A person who believes they are weak behaves differently from someone who believes they can grow stronger. A person who constantly repeats negative thoughts slowly conditions their brain to expect failure. Meanwhile, a disciplined mind begins searching for solutions instead of excuses. The human mind adapts to whatever it repeatedly hears and believes. Over time, thoughts become habits. Habits become behavior. Behavior becomes identity, and identity shapes destiny. That is how powerful the mind truly is. Even the body responds to mental states. Stress can weaken physical health. Fear increases tension. Confidence changes posture, energy, and action. The connection between mind and body is so deep that thoughts alone can influence emotions, motivation, sleep, focus, and overall well-being. And yet most people never pause long enough to observe their own minds carefully. They react automatically. They absorb negativity constantly through social media, stress, and comparison. They allow distractions to dominate attention. Slowly, their minds become filled with noise instead of clarity. But the moment a human being becomes aware of their own thinking patterns, something powerful begins to happen. They realize thoughts are not always truth. They realize emotions can be controlled. They realize the mind can either become a prison or a source of strength. And perhaps that is why mastering the mind is one of the greatest challenges in human life. Because the external world is not the only reality humans must face. Every person is also fighting an invisible inner world made of thoughts, fears, beliefs, and perception. The mind quietly shapes reality from within, and the life a person experiences often begins with the thoughts they allow to live inside their head. Most people believe they are fully in control of their minds. They think every thought they have is intentional, every emotion is understood, and every decision is consciously chosen. But the truth is far more unsettling, because for millions of people, the mind is not being controlled by them. It is being controlled by distractions, fear, social pressure, overthinking, and endless noise they barely even notice. And this silent loss of control happens slowly. The modern world constantly competes for human attention. Phones vibrate. Notifications appear. Endless videos scroll across screens. Music, advertisements, opinions, trends, and information flood the brain from every direction. Most people rarely experience true silence anymore because the moment silence appears, distraction immediately replaces it, and over time, the mind becomes addicted to stimulation. People struggle to sit quietly without reaching for a device. They struggle to focus deeply on one task for long periods. Their thoughts become fragmented, constantly jumping from one thing to another. Attention weakens. Patience disappears. The mind becomes restless even in moments of peace. And perhaps the most dangerous part is that people begin mistaking mental chaos for normal life. But beneath these distractions, something even deeper controls the human mind. Fear. Fear shapes more human behavior than most people realize. Fear of failure. Fear of rejection. Fear of being judged. Fear of not succeeding fast enough. Fear of losing status, relationships, money, or control. These fears quietly influence decisions every single day without most people consciously recognizing it. Sometimes people avoid opportunities not because they are incapable, but because fear convinces them they will fail before they even begin. And then comes overthinking. The human mind has the ability to imagine possibilities, but when uncontrolled, that ability becomes destructive. Overthinking traps people inside endless mental loops. They replay conversations repeatedly. They imagine worst-case scenarios that never happen. They create stress from situations that exist only in their minds. The body reacts as though danger is real even when the threat exists only in thought. That is how powerful the mind becomes when left undisciplined, and social conditioning makes it even harder to think independently. From childhood, humans absorb beliefs from family, school, society, media, and culture. People are taught what success should look like, what fears are acceptable, what goals matter, and how they are expected to behave. Over time, many humans stop questioning whether their thoughts truly belong to them. They inherit mental patterns without realizing it. This is why so many people feel lost internally, even when life appears normal externally. Their minds are crowded with other people's expectations, fears, opinions, and distractions. They rarely stop long enough to ask themselves what they genuinely think beneath all the noise. And without awareness, the mind begins operating automatically. Habits take control. Emotional reactions become predictable. Negative thoughts repeat daily. Stress becomes permanent background noise. People wake up anxious, distracted, exhausted, and mentally overwhelmed without fully understanding why. The mind becomes controlled by external forces instead of internal discipline. But the moment a person becomes aware of this process, something begins to change, because awareness creates distance between the individual and the chaos inside the mind. A person starts noticing destructive thought patterns instead of automatically obeying them. They begin recognizing how distractions steal attention, how fear limits action, and how overthinking drains energy. And slowly, control begins returning. True mental strength is not the absence of thoughts. It is the ability to observe them without becoming controlled by them. It is the ability to focus despite distractions, to act despite fear, to remain calm despite mental noise. But very few people ever train their minds this way. Most humans spend their entire lives reacting unconsciously to whatever enters their attention. And because of that, they never realize one of the most important truths about life. If you do not learn to control your mind, something else eventually will. Beneath every habit, every emotional reaction, every fear, and every automatic behavior inside human life, there exists something most people rarely think about directly. Something silent, something hidden beneath conscious awareness. It is called the subconscious mind, and in many ways, it controls far more of human behavior than people realize. Most humans believe they live consciously, making decisions with logic and awareness. But the truth is, much of life operates automatically. The way people react to stress, the words they repeat to themselves, the habits they follow every day, many of these patterns are deeply rooted inside the subconscious mind. And once something enters the subconscious repeatedly, it begins shaping reality quietly from the background. Think about habits for a moment. At first, every action requires conscious effort. Learning to walk, speak, write, drive, or even communicate socially takes attention and focus. But over time, repetition moves these behaviors into the subconscious, allowing humans to perform them automatically without thinking deeply about them anymore. The subconscious mind learns through repetition, and that is exactly why it becomes so powerful. Because the subconscious does not only store useful skills, it also stores emotional patterns, fears, insecurities, beliefs, and psychological conditioning gathered throughout life. Childhood experiences, painful memories, repeated criticism, trauma, failure, fear, all of these can become deeply embedded beneath conscious awareness. And once they are stored deeply enough, they begin influencing behavior automatically. A person who constantly heard negative words growing up may unconsciously believe they are not good enough even years later. Someone who experienced rejection may develop fear of relationships without fully understanding why. People often sabotage opportunities, avoid risks, or repeat destructive patterns because the subconscious mind quietly convinces them certain outcomes are dangerous. The conscious mind may want success, but the subconscious mind may still be programmed for fear, and this creates internal conflict. Humans often wonder why they repeat habits they know are harmful, why they overthink constantly, why they struggle to stay disciplined, why certain emotions feel uncontrollable. The answer is often deeper than logic alone. Because the subconscious mind operates through patterns built over time, and those patterns continue running silently until they are consciously recognized and changed. In many ways, humans become reflections of what their subconscious has repeatedly absorbed. This is why environment matters so much. The music people consume, the conversations they hear, the content they watch, the words they repeat internally, all of it slowly programs the subconscious over time. The mind records more than humans realize, and once beliefs become subconscious, they begin shaping identity itself. That means a person who repeatedly thinks "I am weak" slowly conditions their brain to behave accordingly. Meanwhile, someone who consistently trains discipline, focus, and confidence begins strengthening those same patterns inside the subconscious mind. The subconscious does not easily distinguish between reality and repeated mental conditioning, and perhaps that is why thoughts are so powerful. Even emotions are deeply connected to subconscious patterns. Sometimes people react emotionally before logic even has time to respond. Fear appears instantly. Anger rises automatically. Anxiety takes control before conscious reasoning fully activates. This happens because the subconscious mind is designed to protect through automatic response. But what protects humans physically can also trap them mentally. Old fears continue controlling new situations. Past pain affects present decisions. Emotional wounds shape future behavior. Without awareness, humans spend years repeating subconscious cycles they never consciously chose. And yet, the moment a person begins observing these hidden patterns, honestly, transformation becomes possible, because awareness weakens automatic control. The subconscious mind may be powerful, but it is not unchangeable. Through repetition, discipline, focus, and self-awareness, humans can slowly rebuild mental patterns over time. New habits can replace old ones. Confidence can replace fear. Peace can replace chaos. But first, a person must understand one uncomfortable truth. The life humans experience externally is often being shaped by hidden programming running silently inside them every single day. The human mind is capable of creating extraordinary things. It can build civilizations, invent technology, create art, solve impossible problems, and completely transform a person's life. But the same mind that can create greatness can also quietly destroy peace from within. And that is what makes the mind both powerful and dangerous at the same time, because every thought carries energy. Most people underestimate how deeply thoughts affect their emotions, behavior, and reality. They treat thoughts as temporary mental noise, not realizing that repeated thinking slowly shapes the condition of the mind itself. A single negative thought may seem harmless, but repeated negativity begins changing how a person sees the world. Over time, thoughts become emotional patterns. A person who constantly focuses on fear begins seeing danger everywhere. Someone trapped in self-doubt starts believing they are incapable before even trying. A mind filled with anger struggles to experience peace. A person consumed by comparison slowly loses appreciation for their own life. And eventually, the mind becomes exhausted by the weight of its own thinking. This is why some people appear physically healthy while mentally collapsing inside. Their external life may look normal, but internally, their minds are filled with pressure, overthinking, regret, insecurity, and emotional conflict. The battle is invisible, but it affects everything: sleep, focus, relationships, motivation, even physical health. The mind can quietly become its own prison. And perhaps the most dangerous part is that humans begin believing every thought automatically. If the mind says, "You are not good enough," many people accept it as truth. If fear says, "You will fail," they stop trying. If anxiety imagines disaster, the body reacts as though danger is already real. But thoughts are not always reality. Theory. Human brain is constantly generating ideas, emotions, assumptions, memories, and fears. Some thoughts are useful, others are destructive. Yet most people never learn how to separate themselves from the constant stream of thinking happening inside their minds. So they become controlled by it. This is why negative thinking becomes so dangerous over time. Repeated thoughts create emotional conditioning. Emotional conditioning shapes behavior. Behavior shapes identity. And identity shapes the direction of life itself. A person who repeatedly tells themselves they are weak slowly begins acting weak. A person who constantly feeds hopelessness strengthens hopelessness internally. Meanwhile, a disciplined mind trained toward focus, growth, and resilience gradually becomes stronger. The mind grows in the direction it is repeatedly fed. And this works both positively and negatively. Human thoughts can build confidence or destroy it. They can create peace or anxiety. They can inspire action or trap a person in fear. Entire lives are transformed based on the mental conversations people repeat to themselves daily. That is why protecting the mind matters so much. Modern life constantly fills human attention with negativity, stress, comparison, fear-driven media, endless distractions, criticism, and emotional pressure. Without awareness, the mind absorbs all of it slowly. And eventually, people wonder why they feel mentally drained even when nothing physically dangerous is happening around them, because mental energy is being consumed internally. But there is another side to the human mind as well. The same mind, capable of suffering, can also become a source of incredible strength. Once humans learn to observe their thoughts instead of obeying them automatically, everything begins changing. Fear loses some power, overthinking weakens, clarity grows, a calm mind begins responding instead of reacting. And this is where true mental power begins. Not when the mind becomes silent forever, but when a person stops allowing every negative thought to control their emotions and identity. Because humans cannot always control what thoughts appear, but they can control which thoughts they continue feeding. And eventually, the thoughts a person chooses repeatedly become the reality they live inside every single day. Most humans spend their entire lives surrounded by noise, constant movement, constant distraction, constant stimulation, phones vibrating, thoughts racing, conversations overlapping, endless information entering the mind every second. And because of this, many people never truly hear themselves clearly. They live reacting automatically, without ever slowing down long enough to understand what is happening inside their own minds. But something powerful happens in silence. Silence removes distraction. It exposes the thoughts people usually try to escape. And at first, that can feel uncomfortable. Because when the noise disappears, the mind begins revealing everything hidden underneath: fear, insecurity, stress, overthinking, emotional pain, and unresolved thoughts that daily distractions normally keep buried. This is why so many people fear being alone with their own minds. The modern world trains humans to avoid stillness. The moment silence appears, people reach for a screen, music, social media, or entertainment. They distract themselves endlessly because silence forces self-awareness. And self-awareness is powerful because it reveals how uncontrolled the mind often is. But once a person stops running from silence, transformation begins. Because silence creates observation, and observation changes everything. For the first time, a person begins noticing their thoughts instead of becoming trapped inside them automatically. They notice how often fear appears, how much overthinking controls emotions, how negative patterns repeat themselves daily. Awareness creates separation between the individual and the chaos happening inside the mind. And in that separation, control slowly returns. This is where focus becomes important. The human mind naturally moves in many directions at once. Distractions weaken attention constantly. But when a person trains focus intentionally, the mind becomes sharper, calmer, and more disciplined. Energy stops scattering across endless worries and meaningless noise. Focus gives direction to the mind. Think about how much mental energy humans waste every day, worrying about things that may never happen, replaying old memories repeatedly, comparing themselves to others, seeking validation, consuming endless information without purpose. The mind becomes overloaded because attention is constantly being pulled in every direction. But a focused mind operates differently. It becomes intentional instead of reactive. And this naturally leads to self-awareness, one of the rarest and most powerful forms of intelligence humans can develop. Because most people understand the external world better than they understand themselves. They know other people's opinions, trends, news, and distractions, but they rarely understand their own emotions, fears, motivations, or mental patterns deeply. Self-awareness changes that. A self-aware person begins recognizing emotional triggers before reacting automatically. They notice destructive habits before repeating them. They become honest about their weaknesses instead of hiding from them. And slowly, they stop living unconsciously. This is where real growth begins. Not when life becomes perfect externally, but when the mind becomes clearer internally. Because once humans truly understand their minds, they stop being controlled by every passing emotion or thought. Fear loses power. Overthinking weakens. Negative patterns become visible instead of invisible. The person begins choosing responses consciously instead of reacting impulsively. And perhaps this is why silence feels so powerful to those who truly embrace it. In silence, humans reconnect with themselves beneath the noise of the world. They begin hearing thoughts clearly instead of drowning in distraction. They discover which fears are real and which are imagined. They realize how much of their suffering came not from reality itself, but from unconscious mental habits running repeatedly in the background, and slowly, peace begins appearing. Not because the external world suddenly changes, but because the relationship with the mind changes. The chaos becomes quieter. The thinking becomes clearer. The person becomes stronger internally, because the moment humans stop running from their minds, they finally begin understanding the incredible power that was hidden inside them all along. The true power of the human mind may not lie in intelligence alone, memory alone, or even imagination alone. Its greatest power may be something far deeper, the ability to completely transform a human being from the inside out. To reshape identity, to change perception, to alter the direction of an entire life through thought, focus, belief, and discipline. And most people never realize how much transformation the mind is truly capable of. Because humans often see themselves as fixed. They say, "This is just who I am." They believe their personality, habits, fears, weaknesses, and limits are permanent. But the mind is not static. It adapts constantly. Every experience, every repeated thought, every habit, and every emotional pattern slowly reshapes the brain over time. That means humans are always becoming something. The question is whether that transformation is happening consciously or unconsciously. Think about how drastically a person can change over the years. Someone once filled with fear can become confident. Someone lost in negativity can become peaceful. Someone weak can become disciplined. Entire identities can shift when the mind begins operating differently. And this happens because the brain itself is adaptable. Neuroscience calls this neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize and strengthen patterns based on repeated thoughts and behaviors. Delta, brain one propto repetition, plus focus, plus emotion. The more a person repeats certain mental patterns, the stronger those patterns become. Fear strengthens fear. Discipline strengthens discipline. Focus strengthens focus. The mind becomes shaped by whatever it practices consistently, and this realization changes everything, because it means the limits many humans believe about themselves may not be permanent truths at all. They may simply be deeply repeated mental conditioning. A person who constantly tells themselves they are incapable slowly builds that identity internally. Meanwhile, someone who trains their mind toward growth, resilience, and purpose gradually transforms their perception of what is possible. The mind begins creating the reality it repeatedly believes. This does not mean life becomes magically easy. Challenges remain real. Pain remains real. Failure remains real. But perception changes how humans respond to those experiences, and response shapes destiny far more than circumstances alone. Two people can experience the same struggle while becoming completely different because of the way their minds interpret it. One breaks internally, the other grows stronger. And perhaps, this is the hidden power humans overlook most often, the ability to consciously direct the mind instead of being controlled by it unconsciously. Because without discipline, the mind drifts toward distraction, fear, laziness, negativity, and emotional chaos naturally. But with intention, the same mind becomes focused, resilient, creative, and powerful. Discipline is what transforms mental potential into reality. Not temporary motivation, not emotional excitement, but repeated control over thought, focus, action, and behavior. And this transformation affects every part of life. Relationships change. Confidence changes. Decisions change. Habits change. Even the way reality feels begins changing because perception itself changes internally. The world may remain the same externally, but the person experiencing it becomes different. And that may be the deepest truth about the mind. Its power is not only in understanding reality, its power is in reshaping the human being, experiencing reality. A disciplined mind can survive pain differently. A focused mind can create differently. A peaceful mind can live differently. Over time, identity itself becomes something humans actively shape rather than something they passively inherit. And perhaps that is why mastering the mind is one of the greatest forms of power a human can ever achieve. Because once a person truly learns to direct their thoughts, focus, and inner world with purpose, they no longer become trapped by the version of themselves they used to be. And the moment you finally master your mind, you stop surviving reality and start shaping it.